Okay, so let's go over the interface. So the first thing I'll direct your attention towards are these little arrows. We've got one here in the top left-hand corner, one in the bottom right-hand corner, left-hand corner, and one in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, so these arrows will open and close particular things. So this one here is going to open and close the browser window. So this is the browser window. And also below that, there is the groove pool. So when I click that, it's going to collapse both of those there. Okay, so if I click that again, it's going to open it up. So this one down the bottom, it opens and closes the show info tab. So this is going to basically show us whatever we've got our mouse over. It's going to explain what that parameter is down in the corner there. So we'll keep that open, so as I go through things, you can also read along if you need to. Now this guy down here is going to collapse and open the bottom browser bar, the bottom effects rack and audio and MIDI clips. So I'll drop some audio and MIDI clips in there later on in the video and show you exactly how that looks when it's in there. But for now, that's where all of our effects or our instruments and everything would go. So they're all the little arrows. Over here we've got these horizontal lines and these vertical lines. So what they're going to do is they're going to swap between the two different views that are available to us within Ableton. So if I click this top one, it's going to show us the arrangement view. Okay, and the way that this view works is basically goes from left to right. So the left being the beginning of the song and the right being the end of the song. So it's like reading a book. You start and you work your way along. That's exactly how this view works. And then if I swap back, this is the session view, and the way that this view works is typically it uses loops. So they play, you have a particular piece of audio and it's just going to play over and over again, and it works top down. So these here are our channels, or our tracks. So we've got 2 MIDI tracks, and then we've got 3, 4, so 2 audio tracks as well, and that's just automatically loaded into Ableton every time you open a fresh project. So another way you can swap between the views is you can press tab on the keyboard. Okay, so that's going to toggle between them, and you can use them together, but you can also use one or the other, and there will be a video that goes into quite a lot of detail about the session view versus the arrangement view. But what I just wanted to point out is, so everything's vertical here. You're looking at things kind of in a top down, and then all of those channels are across sideways in that view. So that's what those 2 buttons do on the side here. We've got a bunch of little buttons down here that are going to toggle particular things that are going to show up in our so this section of Ableton here. So each channel has its own little section that's going to tell you where your ins and outs, so audio coming into the channel and audio flowing out of the channel. And there will be a video that I do that's specifically on signal flow within Ableton to fully understand that. But this little I/O button here is going to turn that section on or off. Okay, so when it's off, we don't see the ins and outs because you don't always need to see them. But if we wanted to change some of the routing of the audio, or if we wanted to send a external instrument into Ableton, we would go ahead and open this up, and then we can navigate to whatever we wanted. And like I said, there'll be a very detailed video showing you how to set up the signal flow properly if you need to start manipulating it. This button here is going to collapse or expand the send window. Okay, so this is we're going to talk about returns and send channels in another video, but for now, this is how we would toggle it on or off. So that will collapse or drop these little send knobs, and then the R is for the return channels. So return channels sit over this side of Ableton. All of our audio and MIDI tracks sit on this side, our returns sit on that side, and if I click that, it disappears, comes back. So for right now, you're not going to understand exactly what these do, but we'll get into that in a later video. This M here stands for our mix controls, so that's going to expand and drop away our mix controls. We've got the D here, which is our track delay. Okay, so if we want to manipulate the like we could have a kick drum playing and just having it played regularly, and maybe we've got a hi-hat loop, but maybe we want to delay the entire loop so it plays a little bit slower, or something like this. We can go into here and we can manipulate it. You can compensate for latency in certain things in here as well, but this is typically something that maybe is just a little bit more of an advanced feature, and as a beginner you're not really going to be using that. So typically by default it's not showing up when you open up Ableton. And then finally we've got the crossfading section here. So if we're using a crossfader on an instrument, for example on a APC 40 or something like that, we can set up our crossfading parameters in there. Cool. So that's those little buttons in it down there. So what I want to do is I quickly want to just run through this section here, but rather than doing it in the session view, I'll do it in the arrangement view just to show you that it is necessary. It is exactly the same thing. It just kind of shows itself differently. So obviously here we've got the track title. So this is the name of the track. So I can go ahead and I can rename it to whatever I want. So I can do that by going Control R, and then I can go track 1. Okay, so that's how I'd rename it. Another way to rename it is I can click on the name and I can right click and I can click rename and I can go track 2. Cool. So that's what that is. Down here we've got basically we can show our automation. So we'll be doing a video on automation where I go into more detail, but this is how I can have a particular thing showing up. So you see when it's none, there's nothing showing up in this channel at all. If I click that and select mix it, now you can see that there's a red line going through here. So what the red line is, we'll be covering in another video, but for now, that's how we would display it. So that's what that section there is. These are the ins and outs. This little window here is the ins and outs. So remember, that collapses it or opens it. And this is how we would set up our audio routing. And then this little box here is our mix section. So this is that button there. Cool. So the blue with the 1, 2, 3, and 4, that is the track activator. So if I have some music playing in here and I go ahead and turn that off, that audio will stop coming through to the speakers. Okay, so I've just turned the channel off completely. So that's how I would turn particular channels off, because maybe I've gone ahead and I've made a whole bunch of stuff, but then in hindsight I've decided that some channels don't necessarily work and I want to deactivate them for now, but I don't want to delete them altogether. I can just deselect it. Cool. Next to that we've got the S button here. So that is solo. So if I just want to hear one channel that I've got, I can go ahead and I can solo that channel. Now, what I'm able to do as well is I'm able to hold control on my keyboard and select another. So you can actually solo more than one channel, which seems a little bit counterintuitive because solo typically would mean one. But yeah, you could go ahead and you could solo a bunch of stuff. And if you want to just deactivate all, like you want to stop soloing it altogether, you can just click it again and they'll all become unsoloed. And then finally, we've got the arm arrangement recording, okay? So if we want to record something into this particular channel, in order for us to let Ableton know that that's where we want to record something, we have to arm it, okay? So if I were to play something in on my little keyboard, I have to click that first because I want the keyboard information to come into this channel. Click it there, and then I would click record. This is the record button. I'll go across the top bar in a minute, but that's where the record button is. And then it would know, so when I press the keys on my keyboard, that information is going to go to that channel rather than all of the other channels that I've got open. Okay, so same deal, that's it down there. Now you'll notice that these audio channels have these buttons here, but the MIDI channels don't. And that's simply because right now these MIDI channels do not have an instrument or a sampler or a drum rack loaded into them. So there's no point in having a volume control when that channel is simply not going to make a sound. Okay, so what we've got here is the track volume. So at the moment it's at 0 decibels. And the way that track volume works in Ableton is you've got +6 and the default. So if I right click on that and select default is 0, and then the absolute, the lowest value, I grab that and I drag down, is -infinity, okay? So that would indicate that there's no sound coming through from this channel. That would indicate that I've got negative 40 decibels below 0 decibels coming through, all the way up to 0. Okay, so that is how we would balance the volume of our particular elements within Ableton. Next, we've got this little C here. So what C means is it's talking about center. Okay, so when we're working with audio in the modern world, we're usually working with stereo. Okay, so what that means is that we've got a left speaker and we've got a right speaker, and the left and right speaker could be playing different parts of the song. So if we have this audio channel and we want the audio to play predominantly through the left speaker, we can grab this and we can drag it all the way down and we can send all of the audio to the speaker. Or alternatively, we can grab that and we can pull it all the way up, we can send it to the right, and we can do somewhere in between as well. Okay, so right click, return to default, that's going to return it to default. And these guys here, they're our send knobs, or they are knobs when you're looking at them in this view. You can see down here the sends are knobs, but here it's just kind of like a little button that you pull up and down. So you would be sending audio from this channel to that send. So that is referring to a reverb, and like I said, we're going to go over that in detail so you really understand what's going on with that. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of an idea there. We've got our meters on the side here, so this is going to be showing us the volume of the audio playing in there, and this is our this is showing us when MIDI information is traveling into Ableton. So I'm just going to turn on my other camera so you can see what I'm doing with my button presses. So I'll turn that on, and then if I come over here and I click the arm, I can press buttons, and you'll notice that these are flashing here. So that means that it's recognizing that MIDI information is flowing into Ableton, and because I've got this armed, it knows that that MIDI information is supposed to go to this channel, but there's no sound being generated because this channel does not have an instrument on it. Okay, so if I go ahead and select this guy, now the information's coming through to this. Okay, and you'll notice up in the corner, this is flashing. So what this is it's the MIDI track in indicator. So when I'm sending MIDI information into Ableton, this is going to flash just to let me know that Ableton is recognizing that. So if I go ahead and unselect this and I keep pressing, you'll see this flashes. You'll also recognize that this is flashing here, but no information is coming through the channel because I have not armed the channel to accept that information. Cool. So that's what that is, and obviously I think I mentioned, but these are the volume indicators for the audio. So when I'm playing audio, there will be something coming through there, and that would also change into a volume strip when I put an instrument on it. Okay, so now it's just showing us the MIDI info, but once I actually put an instrument in there, it would change. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to show you just quickly how you'd navigate to things in the browser. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to grab an instrument. Okay, so I'm going to go instruments. I'm going to go to the operator. So operator is an inbuilt instrument inside of Ableton. I'm going to drop that down, and let's say I'll get a synth lead. Okay, so I'm going to drop that down, and I'm going to audition these sounds. So let's play that. And excuse me a moment, I'm just going to pop my headphones on. Okay. Cool. Let's just grab that because it doesn't really matter what we're dealing with. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and press the buttons on my keyboard. So now that's turned into volume. Cool. So that is how I would pull an instrument in. So it's just click and drag onto the channel that you're wanting to use, and that'll drop it in, and then you can play your keyboard and it'll play a particular sound. So if I turned that off and then went to play keys, it's not going to send any information through. Okay, so I'm just going to turn off that second camera for now, and we'll continue. So alright, so we've got an instrument on this channel and we can see it down in here. So now this gives you an indication of like what actually shows up here. So we've got the instrument and all of the parameters that will be displayed here. And if I went and grabbed an effect, so an effect is going to change the sound of this, I can go ahead and I can grab a ping pong delay, and I can pull it over here. And if I arm my channel again, I can play something. So now the ping pong is being added onto that. So this generates the signal, it gets sent to the ping pong delay, and then it comes out of the ping pong delay and goes to our speakers. Okay, so that's how effects and whatnot are displayed on our effect rack here. Now, if I grab a piece of audio, I'm going to go to samples. I'm going to open up this Truth dubstep sample pack. So shout out to Truth, they're producers from New Zealand, and they make some really awesome dubstep. I'm going to just grab the hook sounds here, and I'm going to drop it onto my channel. Okay, so I dragged and dropped. Now, if I tried to drop that onto MIDI, onto a MIDI channel, it will just automatically convert it from a channel to a MIDI channel. If I try to drop it here, it's going to ask me whether I want to convert it into MIDI. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to click on that guy and I'm just delete him because I want him down here. So now when I press play, I've got it selected. I'm going to press play. You can see the audio is coming through here. And another thing that I wanted to show you as well is I can go ahead and I can find an effect. I can drop an effect on that channel and that audio will get sent to that effect. So let's listen to that. Cool. Sweet. And now if I actually direct your attention, there's this for audio tab, which is indicating the channel that I've got selected. And then next to that, you can see that there's a little waveform here. So if I go ahead and select that, it's going to blow up the, this tab that's got the actual waveform in it, so we can see what's going on. We've got a whole bunch of things over here that I'll cover in the audio manipulation video, but that shows you the clip that you've got selected. So if I go back to here, it just drops back away, but that's how I can actually see it. If I deselect it, that disappears. Okay, so you actually have to have the clip selected that you want to see in here. And again, to toggle between the effects and the actual clip, you just use this down here. Cool. Now that looks a little bit different from MIDI. So what I'll do is I'll show you how MIDI works. So I'll select that area. I'm going to right click. Sorry, 1 second. I'm going to select that area. I'm going to right click and I'm going to insert a MIDI clip. Okay. So now you can see there's this little clip here. So when I've got that selected, I can click this tab and now it shows me the piano roll. Okay. So with MIDI, things work like piano notes, and we'll go into depth with that, but I just want to show you the difference. That's what happens when you click that tab with a MIDI selected, and that's what you see with audio selected. Cool. So that is what we're looking at here. Now if we quickly run across the top bar, and that will be our interface covered. We have tap tempo here, so if we wanted to if we had a track or something that was playing and we wanted to tap along to it, the BPM, we could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that tells you how quickly you're tapping. So in this case, I'm tapping at 138 beats per minute. So what I could also do is I can double click on that and I can go 140 and I can set the BPM exactly to what I want. So I type 140 and sorry, that may have toggled my camera on and off. I should have thought about that a little bit before I set those hotkeys. So that's how I would change that manually. We've got tempo nudge up or nudge down. So if I wanted to temporarily increase the tempo just quickly, if I wanted to sync up to another musician, that's how I'd do it there. I've got 4/4 timing here, so that's my time signature. I've got my metronome here, so if I activate my metronome and press play, you can hear that beeping away. So I'm going to press spacebar to stop that. We've got quantization, which I'm going to talk about in another video. We have the follow command. So the follow command is going to always keep the camera centered on exactly where we are playing in the video. So that's quite handy if you want to follow things along. So if I was over here, if I engage that and then press play right at the edge, it's going to move me across. Okay, so it's always going to have this play bar on the screen. So what that white line is that's where I'm currently playing this particular track. Okay. Next, we've got our arrangement position. So right now, my cursor is on the 77th bar. You can see that there. We're on the second beat of that particular bar, and we're on the 3rd 16th note of that bar. Cool. We've got play and stop, which is also spacebar. We've got record, which I covered before, so if we wanted to record in something, we can press that. We've got overdub, so if we've recorded something and then we want to record more information over top of it, that's how we do it there. Automation arm and re-enable automation, so this is about changing parameters over time automatically rather than having to do it ourselves, and I'll do a video that's specifically about automation later on. And I've got the loop controls here. Okay, so this white brace here, that is our loop controller, so we can grab that, we can pull it around, and you'll see that value changes. So if I put it here, the loop is going to start at bar number 17, and it's going to go for 4 bars. Okay, so bar number 17 and 4 bars long, and it'll loop back around. So if I go ahead and enable the loop, so these white bars drop down, that means that it is going to loop, and I press play. It's going to play that, and then once it gets to the end, it's going to flip back around and start again. Cool, so I'm going to stop that there. We've got record, like punch in switch and punch out switch, and I'll do that when we do some more talking on like how we record instruments in and that sort of thing. And just so you know, you can actually grab that and you can pull it up and you can put yourself wherever you kind of want. And you can also type the values in to Ableton as well. And then if you want to move the loop brace, you can move it over there. Another way to turn the loop brace on is you can select the area you'd like to loop. You can go Control L and it puts that loop brace on and it enables it for you. Cool. So we've got the pencil tool here. So pencil is linked to this. So it's basically you can draw in your automation. So if I want the volume of something to change over time, I can select that and then I can draw it in. I can also basically you can either draw it in freeform or you can do it in a very like rigid sort of drawing lines kind of manner. Cool. Now I'm just going to turn on my other camera just quickly. So what we've got here is our computer MIDI keyboard. So as you can see, I've got an actual keyboard here, but if I didn't have a keyboard and I wanted to play something, if this is engaged, I can actually use my computer keyboard to play notes in. Okay, so if I go ahead and click that and turn it off, when I press keys on my keyboard, it's not going to play any new notes. Okay, so that needs to be engaged, and then I can actually play instruments with my keyboard. Obviously, if I've got that on, I can still press the notes on here manually myself and set them up. Cool, so I'm just going to drop that away again. Next, we've got key mapping. So let's say the spacebar is play and pause. If I wanted to map that to something else, I could click key mapping. I could click the play button, and then I could press another key on my keyboard, and that would remap. And every time I press that button, it would do whatever the command it was that I mapped it to do. So that's a way you can change things around, make it a bit more personal if you want. Here we've got the MIDI in indicator and the MIDI out indicator. So this is if I've got an instrument that's sending MIDI information into Ableton, or I've got something inside of Ableton sending MIDI information out. We'll talk more about that in another video, but that's where it's indicated. Here we've got the MIDI map. So if I click on that, I can click on a parameter, and then I could move a knob that I have. So for this case, it's going to be the volume. So if I move that knob, I've just mapped that knob to control the track volume. Okay, so then I can turn that off, and I can start moving that knob, and you'll notice over here it's moving the volume. Okay, so that's how I would map a controller. So we'll put that back to 0. Here we've got the CPU usage meter. So this is telling us how hard our computer is working to run our project. And if that starts to get pretty high, then it's probably going to maybe make our audio crackle, or something's going to be causing some problems. And then right next to it, we've got the hard disk overload indicator. Okay, so this is if our hard drive is taking a really long time to pull information, it's going to let us know there. Cool. So that is everything for the interface, and that should be a good rundown of everything. And in the next video, we'll go over some differences between the arrangement view and the session view. So I'll see you guys there. Thanks. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to support my channel, consider subscribing on YouTube, following on Facebook. Alternatively, if you'd like to support me financially, jump over onto Patreon and become a patron, or donate via PayPal. And don't forget Starting a new endeavor, such as learning Ableton and electronic music production, can be extremely overwhelming. So take things day by day and believe in yourself. Thank you.